this actually records this time. I've tried recording this multiple times, and so far it has not worked. But I really, really keep trying because I think I have maybe a solution to the very pesky problem of bedtime zoomies. Such a silly word for such an annoying problem. So if you're willing to humor me and try something new, we're gonna try a visualization exercise to soothe that energy. So, what I think is helpful is to have some sort of fidget. For me, that is just my little magnetic balls. And with that fidget, I'll hold it in one hand. And for the purposes of this exercise, I'm going to use my mic. My mic as my fidget. And even though you don't want to, even though it might feel uncomfortable right now, I want you to lay down somewhere where you feel like you maybe could fall asleep and be okay with that. That could be the couch, that could be the floor, that could be your bed, but you don't have to be in bed if that doesn't feel right to you. And in your safe space, I invite you just to close your eyes and hold your fidget in your hand. And as you hold your fidget in your hand, use it. Start fidgeting. And while you fidget, turn all your attention to that fidget. Turn all your attention to that fidget. Ignoring whatever noises you hear, whatever sensations you have. You can notice them, but if you see it or think about it, just label it noticing and push it away for later. With your whole attention on your fidget in your hands. And as you fidget, try your best to take a couple of deep breaths. One more. And as you release that last breath, notice where the energy sits in your body. I'm going to start with my feet and just do a quick scan, taking my perception or my attention from my feet up to my head. And I like to imagine my perception as like a magnifying glass into that part. So I zoom in. Sorry, I have to move. I zoom in to my feet and I think about, is there energy here? Do I perceive anything? And I then move up to my calves. Notice if there's any energy there. And my thighs, and my hips, and my chest, and stomach, and my start with my other hand. My other hand that is not holding the fidget. And I imagine pulling all the energy that I sense that I can into a ball of light. And maybe you're full of energy, so this ball of light is very, very bright because you have lots of movement still in your body. Or maybe there's just a little bit of fidgety energy left, so it's just a dim little glow. No matter what, imagine that ball of light moving a little bit warm together into your other palm without the fidget, up into your wrist, into your forearm, through your elbow, and as it goes through those spaces, it gathers more energy and it gets a little brighter. And then it moves up through your bicep, through your shoulder, and then across your chest, gathering as much energy into this light ball that it can, down into your other bicep, into your elbow, into your forearm, until it hits your fidget in your other hand, at which point imagine that all that light pours into the fidget. The fidget will store the energy for later. You can imagine this while you're being still, or you can imagine this while you move the fidget so that it goes in to the fidget. Then you want to look at one of your legs. One of your legs. I like to move in a circle. So I use the leg that is on the side of my body that I just scanned. And I think about my toes. And I find all the energy. And I start balling it up into the balls of my feet. And I pull it together and move it into my ankle, gathering more energy as I go. And I move it through my calf, up into my knee. And I pull this ball of light up through my thigh, and I imagine it going into my hip, up through my stomach, to the hand or the arm that holds the fidget. And I once again imagine that hand or arm glowing and getting warmer. And as the energy hits the fidget, I imagine it getting a little warmer and a little heavier, because again, it's storing all that energy. And if you take a second to scan the two limbs that we've done, you might notice that there might be some energy left, but we'll come back for that later. It should feel heavier. It should feel like less full of energy, a little heavier, a little duller, like it's ready for sleep. And then I go down into my other leg, focusing in on the toes, pulling all the energy down through my toes into the balls of my feet again, until I ball it all up, and I space it sits in, through my thigh, through my hip. This time, because it's the same side with my fidget, I'll do a quick swirl through my stomach, up through my chest, into my arm, down through the elbow, down through the wrist, until it hits the fidget in the palm of my hand. At this point, I take a second to notice where my body still feels some energy. I'm also focusing only on my limbs for now. I don't want to worry about my chest or my body. We'll deal with that in a second. And to make sure I got every little piece of energy in my body, I do the whole thing again. But this time, I start with my other hand, the one without the fidget, and I look at my thumb, or I examine my thumb, and imagine my perception scraping in a circle or a spiral down the thumb, getting any hidden energy down into my other palm. And then I go into my pointer finger and I do the same thing. I scrape with my perception any remaining energy down into my palm. And then my middle finger, scraping energy into my palm. And then I do my ring finger, scraping all the way through that finger in a spiral, looking for more energy. And I wrap up with my pinky, scraping for energy. And you might notice that this ball of energy this time is a lot duller. It might be a weak little flicker, or maybe you have like still quite a bit of energy, but hopefully it's less than earlier. And as we move through our hand this time, we want to do the same kind of scraping. And then for some reason, I just imagine the spiral doing its final sweep through all the way from my hand to my elbow, from my elbow to my shoulder, across my chest, over to the hand with the fidget, and scraping down the bicep, down the forearm, until we hit the wrist and push that little bit of energy we gathered into the fidget for later. Once again, noticing a slight change, as if our ball of light, our ball of energy, has entered the fidget for use later. And I do the same thing as I go down my leg. So I start at my big toe, do the scrape, pull the energy into my heel, scrape up my calf for any remaining energy, gathering it in that warm ball, gathering it into my knee and up my thigh to my hip, across my stomach to my arm with the fidget, and down, 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 until that energy ball hits the fidget and it moves in once again, adding a little more light and a little more warmth and a little more weight to the fidget. And I do my other yours still has a little bit, take a second to pull any remaining energy you have together and down into the fidget. Now for me, my bedtime zoomies mostly affect my body, which is why I started with my limbs, but sometimes my brain races too. And instead of acknowledging the fact that there's thoughts, I treat my scalp and my brain and my face like a muscle to pull the energy out of, just like I did the rest of my body. So I start with the crown of my head, and I pull any energy from my scalp into the crown of my head and through my eyes, pulling energy from them to the center of my head, pulling it down to my nose, pulling any energy from my cheeks, and pulling it down from the base of my skull, pulling that energy into the ball from my jaw, from my lips, from my chin, down as I pull all this energy, feeling my head become heavy, feeling my eyes heavy, pulling this energy down into my neck, pulling any energy from my neck muscles, and pulling it down, into my clavicle, and across into the hand with the fidget. As I move down, and again feel that light pouring into the fidget. And if you'd like, we can do the brain and the head again. So move your attention back to the top of your head. Pull any energy from the scalp down into the center of your skull, pulling energy into this ball of light in the center of your skull, pulling from your eyes, scraping any remaining energy around like a spiral once again, pulling from your cheeks, your nose, your jaw, your lips, maybe even your tongue, your chin, pulling it down from the center of your skull to your neck, to the base of your skull, pulling any energy that remains, pulling more as we move down to our neck, spiraling once again, scraping any crumbs we left behind, and down the bicep, down the elbow, down the forearm, into our fidget. And from here, I didn't want to move, so I could hold on to my fidget. Or I can simply, if you're okay with moving, place my fidget on the nightstand for tomorrow, where that energy will be for me to use again. I hope you have a lovely